In today's video, I'm going to conclude my remodeling of this sink cabinet by showing you how I created this custom-made Formica countertop. Alright, so as you see in the other video, I installed the drawers over there in that cabinet, so now I'm going to make a countertop for it. So this is a relatively simple countertop and easy enough for any craftsman to do. I just cut it out of MDF, 3/4 inch MDF. It's nice and flat. It's the cheapest sheet goods you can buy. And I have two cap strips that are going to go around the edges here that are going to be finished. And again, these could have been maple or anything, but I made them also out of MDF because they're going to be covered with Formica, which is this white stuff that you see on top of here. And so first I'm going to add these cap strips to it, and then I'm going to cut my Formica to size and then cement it on. So I'll take you through that process. So let's get started. Well, that was scary. So the key point here is to make sure they line up as flush as possible. And of course I will sand down whatever doesn't, but I want to get as close as possible if I can. That just makes life easier. Let me setting this all up. All right, going to do a little bit of quick sanding here to flatten down this edge with the top. Okay, so I've sanded down my top. What I want to do is I want to get my cap strips level with the top. So I want to be real careful when I'm sanding to make sure it's nice and flat. I sanded the front here to make sure it's smooth. I don't round this over. We don't want to round this over till after we apply the laminate. Now I have a Formica sheet here that I cut out on the table saw, and I have it about 1 inch oversized, which is about what you want. We'll take and put some contact cement on both sides and then lay this down. And once you lay it down, it's there permanent. There's no moving around with it. And then we'll trim it up, and then I cut some side pieces here that will go on the side, and we will trim that up, and we'll put a nice little bevel on the edge here to give it a nice finished look. So now I just gotta go ahead and apply the contact sheet to both sides and then stick it down. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. This countertop is going to go on my formerly sink bench. So this is just MDF, 3/4 inch MDF. I made 2 cap strips to go on there, nailed them in, countersank, sanded everything smooth. So you want a nice durable, something that's durable to be a finish on top. Now you could just finish this and that would work okay. I found that Formica really works well and is durable, easy to clean, and easy to maintain. And you see they have Formica on this top here. So what you need for that is you need to buy some Formica and you cut it to size. And this is roughly about 1 inch all the way around, maybe a little bit on the longer end. But you want to make sure that it's oversized so that when you place it down, you have some extra on the edges, because you'll trim that off later. And after that, you're going to need some contact cement. Now this particular contact cement is the solvent base. They do have a water base, and the water base is nice because you don't have that smell. This really has a really high odor to it, and it's also very, very flammable. So my garage door is actually wide open here, and I'm next to the edge of it, because if the water heater should kick on, if I have everything closed up and I have a large bunch of the fumes in here, it could ignite that, so I don't want that to happen. So be safe when you're using the solvent base. Now, solvent base is a little bit cheaper than the water base, but again, if you don't like the smell, and trust me, it does smell, then it's definitely worth using. I haven't, this particular one here, this countertop here was put down with water base. And when I had my shop, we put them all down. All we had was solvent base back then. And it doesn't seem to matter which one you use. They both work equally well. So in addition to the contact cement, you're going to need some way to apply that. And I'm using a chip brush here. This is a shop chip brush. I got a box of them at Harbor Freight. I think there's 36 in the box. Yeah, 36 in the box. And it's a 2-inch wide. You can, you probably could put it on with a roller, I guess. You could probably just squeegee it on, but I found this works pretty good. Now what you want to do is you want to grab these bristles as hard as you can and just pull on them and try to get any loose bristles out, because of course it's not a high quality brush, so you're going to lose some bristles. And you want a brush that you're going to throw away afterwards, because this stuff, especially a solvent-based one, is not easy to clean. Water-based one would be much easier, but by then it'd probably be starting to dry. So you want that, and you want some dowels or some square pieces of wood to go and lay across this way here, because what we're going to do is we will have that laying across here so that when this sets down, it's not touching the glue down there now. Contact cement, when you use contact cement, what you do is you're going to coat both sides, and I'm going to flip this on over here. So I'm going to coat this with contact cement and this with contact cement, and then you're going to let it dry about 15-20 minutes until it's dry to the touch. And then you're going to lay down some pieces of wood across here, flip this on over, line it up, and then remove a piece of wood at a time and start flattening it down as you go across there and get out all the air. Now afterwards you can use a roller, and this is, I believe it's called a J-handle roller, but if it's not, let me know in the comments below that I got the wrong name there. But it allows you to put some pressure down and really get a nice bond as you roll over everything once it's together. You could get away with using an old rolling pin from the kitchen. You know, just don't use your wife's best rolling pin, because that might make her upset. Or your husband's best rolling pin, whichever you may have, or your spouse's rolling pin. But other than that, let me get started and show you how. So I'm basically just going to coat this. Now I am going to put a piece on the top, and I'll put pieces on the side, but the side piece will go on after I laminate the top down. I get it all trimmed up, and then I'll put the side pieces, trim them up, and then I'll put this in piece and trim that up. So you do it one section at a time. So let's get started. So, you just put it on. You don't want it super thick on there, but you definitely don't want it to be dry either. So on this particular part here, you want to make sure you get all the way out to the edges. And you know, a real thick coat would be bad, only because you know, part of it would be thin, the other part would be thick. So you want to try and get as even of a coat as possible. So I'm working quite fast here because the 2-inch brush is not very wide. I mean, I probably would have been better off getting a much larger brush, but this is what I have, so this is what I'm working with. So I will just go through it fast and get it on down. So around the edges especially, you want to make sure, but you definitely don't want it lifting up towards the middle either. And work away from you coming back, because like I said, this stuff is potent. This stuff. Too bad we don't have smell-o-vision, you guys could see, or some kind of scale on my video that would show you how much this stuff stinks. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and finish up this side. Okay, so the nice thing about having a little bit extra at the end there, it allows you to put this on without having to go all the way out to the edge here and making a mess of your bench here. So that you can see what I'm doing here is I just go out far enough to cover it where it's going to overlap, and then work my way around. So respirator is not a bad idea for this particular stuff. That's the nice thing about the water base, is you don't need a respirator if you're you know, susceptible to that kind of stuff. I have pretty good ventilation going here, and I'm trying to keep my head as far back as possible, but this stuff can get to you after a while. So just be careful with it. All right, so I have all of my glue onto my two pieces here. I'm gonna let them dry. And the way that you can tell that they're dry enough is that, let me throw this out here real quick. So the way that you can tell that they're dry is when they lose that sheen to them, so that it all becomes a matte look to it. And then the thing about it is that once they're dry, you can touch it. It doesn't feel sticky at all. But man, the minute they touch each other and once they make that contact, they do not come apart. So that's why we want to separate them until we get them lined up correctly, and then place them down where we want it so that it all comes out. So we'll be back in a second to do that process. Okay, so it's been about 15-20 minutes and both surfaces are pretty dry. Now, if you let it over dry, you can reactivate it by just applying another coat. Sometimes some wood, very porous material, you're gonna have to apply 2 coats, but I've never had to do that yet. So, but right now what you wanna do is, what I'm gonna do to show you, is I'm gonna lay down some dowels across here. And I'm gonna space them out evenly, and even some pieces of wood. I don't have enough dowels to go all the way across, I think. But I want it so that when we place the piece of Formica on top, I don't want it to touch down onto this. Like I said, the minute it touches down, it's pretty much there permanently. Now, if you're by yourself, you could probably do this, but it's good to have somebody help. So my wife's gonna grab this in here, and we're just gonna grab it like this because we're just gonna flip it right on over the top, Terry. All right? And just make sure we keep it flat so that it goes across there, doesn't touch anything. And then what I want to do is slide it over so it's about 1 inch overhang on both sides. And what you do is you feel down here, Terry, like this, and you can feel it, feel the edges. Yeah. And then here you got about 1 inch too.
Oh, I've got about 2 inches.
Yeah, that's good because it's extra long. Okay, so thank you. So what I'm gonna start doing now is I'm just gonna remove one of these, and I'm gonna let that surface touch. I'm gonna go ahead and just press it down. And then I'm just gonna go through and just continue to move them and sort of wipe it like that. Probably come out the other way would be better. And pull that on out. And again, the minute this touches down, I can pull it up a little bit, but it's not moving at all. It's pretty much solid there. So contact cement means exactly that. Once it contacts, it's locked down. Now before I continue on over there, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna press this down with a little bit of pressure, just to make sure I get a good bond on it. And make sure I get all the air out.
What are you using?
Well, I've already explained to him that this was a J roller, but yes, that's a good question in case anybody's forgot this. So this is a J roller, and again, like I said, you can use any kind of rolling pin that you want, anything that allows you to put some pressure down on it. You can even sit down on top of it and run your butt back and forth if you want. Whatever puts pressure on it, that's what you need. So, my wife sort of wants me to do that now. So again, just take it out, slide it towards the edge there. Thank you. And then there you have it. And again, I'm using the J roller just to seal it on down. And all you want to do is just make sure that it has a tight bond and it has some pressure. So I'm just going to go back and forth a few times and just keep doing this until I feel comfortable about this, how tight everything is down. And again, it's almost, and it's like, see, this doesn't even want to come up at all. So it's almost an instantaneous bond. And I'm pushing this back and forth so that I can put pressure on it. I don't flip the thing over. I learned that by doing, actually. And I broke off a little bit of piece here, but that's not going to hurt anything because I'm going to trim that up, trim the edge a little bit, in a little bit, I should say. And you do want to make sure that you do go around all the edges, get a nice tight seal. Gotta remember how close to the edge I get right there.
Brittle.
It is, yeah. All right, so now that this is down, what we're going to do is we're going to trim it up, and I'm actually going to move this outside to trim it up because Formica pieces are going to fly all over the place, so I don't really want to be in here with that. But what I have is I have my handheld router and I have a straight trim bit. So it has a ball bearing at the end here and it has the cutter on the inside there, and we're going to set it so that it goes just past the Formica with the cutter, and the ball bearing is going to hit on the wood below. So that's pretty much where it's set at right now. And all I have to do is get my battery on that, move everything outside, and we'll reset up, come back, and show you how I trim it up. Okay, so I got my trim bit locked into my router and set to the proper depth so that it makes a nice clean cut across this and pull off this Formica. Now, once you press it down and seal it down, it's pretty much dry. I mean, you can go ahead and just start working on it right away. So it's pretty much finished at this point. So I am going to put my my respirator and my earbuds on, so I won't be able to talk to you, but just watch. All right, that showed you my lack of preparedness. My battery powered one did not have a fully charged battery, so it died on me a few times. So I went ahead and got this one, which plugs in, so I don't have to worry about battery power. So now I will continue. So what I'm gonna do is use this piece of sandpaper, go across this edge just to make sure everything's smooth. Then I'm gonna glue on a piece of Formica onto here, and then onto here. Well, first put glue on here, trim it up, and then glue it onto here and trim it up. And then this countertop will be done. I'll just put a little bull nose right across here, which I'll show you in a minute. Okay, so if you got any glue onto the Formica, which you will most likely have, all you gotta do is just clean it up with a little bit of acetone. And it just cleans it right off. So any marks that you got on the Formica along the edges, just add a little bit of acetone to the rag, wipe it across there. Gets it all nice and clean. It also does a good job of cleaning off any scuff marks onto the Formica, just to make it all nice and pretty. So I will just finish cleaning this up, and then this top will be done. Okay, so now my countertop is all finished. All that's left is I'm going to use some caulking, actually, some DAP caulking, and put it across the top of that cabinet, and then take and press this down onto it, and that's going to hold it in place. It'll also make it removable later on. If you wanted it permanent, you would use construction adhesive like that. Something like that would make it permanent. But that's pretty much it. The 45 had a nice low edge, gave it a little roundness to it, so it's not sharp right at the corners there, because it is really sharp once you finish routing it and with the trim bit. But using a 45, a very shallow 45 cut, does give it a nice little contrasting line here at the edge. But I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please do subscribe and like. And this should finish it up for my work cabinet here in the garage. It basically was an old sink cabinet. I added new drawers to it, made a new counter, a regular counter for it. Put that on. If you wanted to finish it up, you trim the back part to the wall. But I'm not going to do that on this one because it's a garage cabinet, and I'm probably going to paint those cabinets eventually, because that one definitely needs some painting going on to it. But thanks for watching, and hopefully you'll be back soon.